you can't identify these things overnight. So you can't just like stare at the computer and pick what you want. So you have to, as much as possible, get yourself out there, discover what it is that sparks your interest, or even if it's just like conversations with people, being more observant about yourself.
Emerge Stories is a place where, as the name implies, you are going to hear stories. Stories from people all over the Philippines who have come from many different types of backgrounds, and especially people who have gone through struggles, people who have gone through the challenging parts of life. And I hope that these stories will relate for you in some way, that some of these stories will really land for you because these people have gone through probably just about the same thing you might be going through right now. Welcome back to Emerge Stories. This week we will be speaking with Cora Ko, and she's got a bit of an entrepreneurial beginnings story for you. Cora, after years in a 9 to 5, she decided to start stepping out of her comfort zone and taking risks. She realized that she wanted autonomy and she wanted more freedom, and she realized that she could actually create that if she got the right kind of job. So finding remote work or work from home in her using her previous skills, she was able to keep that career going, but at the same time start a business. And now she's owner of Bark Concepts, a beloved pet lifestyle company in Cebu City. Combining her love for animals with her business acumen, Cora has found fulfillment in bringing joy to pet owners. I hope you guys find something inspiring here, especially those of you who are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs, or maybe you've tried it before and failed. Maybe you'll hear something inspiring in Cora's story. As always, it's the power of the relatability of these stories that makes all the difference. So if there's somebody you think that should know or hear this story of Cora's, please take a moment to share it with them. And as always, we so much appreciate you being here. Please subscribe and click the bell so you can get the notifications of new content when we create it. Thank you so much for being here, and let's jump into the story with Cora. Welcome, Cora, to the Emerge Philippines. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to hear your story. I've been working with you for a while, but I think there's going to be some things that I discover about you today. So this will be a fun virtual coffee conversation. Let's just tell anybody who's listening, what are you doing with your life right now? What's going on with Cora these days?
I spent most of my time as the client success manager for Valhalla. I've been enjoying talking to clients and maintaining relationships with them. So that's one of my main priorities right now. But aside from that, I also manage a business. It's a pet lifestyle store called Bark Concepts. That's what I do on the side with my business partner. So what we do there is we provide a space for different pet brands to display their products at the physical store so that customers can actually have a feel and look of what the products they will be getting for their pets. So that's mostly the two of the major things that's going on in my life right now.
Nice. And you live here in Cebu, and I know you have a beagle, you're getting another one.
Yeah.
What's good in your personal life these days?
I really like my setup right now because, as what you've said, I have a beagle and I enjoy spending time with him, walking him every day. And the setup that I have, being in a remote work and also getting to manage a business, I have a lot of time to spend with my beagle or with my family and with the things that I enjoy most. So it really allows me to set up my day how I want it to be.
Cool. I love that. I'd love to talk today a little bit about kind of the decisions that you've made in your life that allowed you to craft that life that you have right now. Because I think sometimes if people hear, when we see an example or we hear somebody talk about their life and we're like, oh, that's so nice. They're so lucky. Yeah, maybe it's luck, or maybe it's not luck. Maybe it's actually decisions you've made along the way, who you've turned yourself into, and how you've crafted your life. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that, because I've done a lot of reinventing of myself and a lot of hard work to have that kind of similar setup where I
Mhm.
like everything in my life. I've chosen it, but it took a long time to get there and a lot of kind of struggle also. So tell us a little bit about, what was your childhood like?
What was my childhood like?
Or,
It was a
just,
happy.
yeah, what was your life like growing up? Just anything you want to tell in your sort of your early days backstory.
I had a happy childhood life. I have five siblings who I enjoy like playing with and learning from. And I grew up in Danao. which is 30 kilometers away from the city. But I studied in the city. I also spent most of the time in the city. So it's not really having a,
Provincial
yeah, like having a provincial upbringing.
or city?
Yeah.
Okay. And how about your family? What was your family doing when you were a kid?
What I would always remember is they were very focused on our business. My mom and dad would have like different businesses from every like a few years. And I was just really focused on studying and going to school. So that's how my mindset was like. So they do the business part of it and I do the studying part. The focus was just there.
Most people's parents are guiding them, reminding them how important it is to get good grades and get a diploma and so that you can go into a good job. But what about your family? What was their prescribed way of living? Because everybody's got their idea of the best way to live, and we try to convince our kids of that path. What were your parents holding out for you as the best path or the one they wanted for you, if any?
Because they were very business minded, my dad actually pushed me to create a path for like a corporate path for me. So he didn't encourage me to start my own business. He just really encouraged me to study hard, get good grades, find a good job that will support me in the long run.
Okay. Do you have any idea why that is? Do you think is something to do with his struggle in business or
Yeah.
okay.
I think, yeah, mostly because starting a business is difficult. There are a lot of challenges there. And I think he wanted to pave a path for me to be more, to have a more consistent
Stable.
or, yeah.
Okay. So the security and the stability of employment seemed, at least at that time for him, maybe an easier life than what he was going through. So then he's like, all right, why don't you don't do what I did, get into a good corporate career. All right. So then how did that progress for you? Yeah. Tell us about like that path. Is that the path you pursued? Is going into kind of corporate?
Yes, after graduation, I always thought that I had to find a job right away. I had to be with a good company that would help me grow myself. So that's always been like how I envisioned my life after I graduated.
Okay. And then what kind of job did you, or how quickly did you get a job after graduating?
I took a few months off. So I started getting a job, I think 6 months after I graduated. After getting a first job, it was just really, I never had a long time to think of what I really want. So it was one job after the other, making sure that I'm busy with something or I'm always with a company just to have that security or stability.
I'd love to hear a little bit about the specific types of jobs you had with what kinds of companies and why there was one after another. But before we go there, you said that initially when you thought about getting a job right after or after graduating, that one of your criteria was growth, that the job would help you grow. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by grow? Just like learning new
Grow in a
skills?
sense, yes, to learn new
Okay.
skills, basically, because I'm a business graduate. So there are really a lot of options for me and like on what departments I want to focus on. So I wanted to have that growth in my career
Okay.
and not just stick to one routinary job or something.
So you wanted to get diverse set of experiences, something like that?
Yes.
Okay, so you had already a plan to try different things and not necessarily stick with just one industry or something.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your experience been like across the different jobs you've had? Have you typically found have you found very satisfying growth in the jobs that you've had or not as much as you expected?
And my first job as a account manager in a publishing company, I didn't really find any satisfaction out of it. I learned the basic skills of sales and marketing, but expanding myself to really be satisfied, like after working, do I feel like I did something good for the world? That's the question that went on my head while I was in that job. So it wasn't that satisfying for me yet, but it served me at that time because I was able to learn new skills that
Okay.
will eventually help me in the future.
So learning new skills in the beginning, but not really feeling meaning or
Yeah.
yeah, not feeling okay. And there's a big difference between skill acquisition and growing oneself. If we're feeling like we're actually becoming a better person, that's a lot different than just like learning graphic design or learning to type faster or something like that. Yeah. So I think when we come out of school, like it's easy to get skill acquisition because anything you do is new, right? And you're just like, okay, I got some mastery of that. But there's a very different feeling from feeling like, oh, I like myself better because I have deeper understandings of things. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about maybe some of the different jobs that you've had. What kind of work have you what kind of industries have you been in?
I previously also worked in a production and events industry for a short while, and I enjoyed like meeting a lot of people there and being very active. It was a lot of groundwork, so that also excite like I was also excited during that phase because I wasn't limited to computer work. So it was more of like meeting people in person and doing groundwork. That was an exciting part as well.
What do you think was that kind of your first job where you were doing a lot of meeting new people?
Yeah, at that job, I was more exposed to meeting new people and actually getting to talk to them and a lot of interaction.
Did you like that immediately, or was it a little bit scary at first?
It was scary at first, but with a lot of practice, you get used to it.
What do you feel like in that role, learning or growth? Like, what did you get? What did you learn, or how did you grow in that role?
I think that really helped me with my interpersonal skills. Of course, when after graduation, you have all that energy and you're still unsure of yourself. So when you start talking to a lot of people and sharing conversations, that's when you also notice yourself and you're exposed to opportunities that will allow you to really reflect on how you deal with people and on what are the conversations that you tell them, what excites you. So I found a lot of opportunity of getting to know myself while talking to a lot of people at that stage.
Nice. I'd love to hear about in your professional career. How long have you been working?
I'd say about 8 years already.
Okay. What can you think of as one of the worst times in that period? Like maybe a time when you really felt down, stuck? Like just what's one of the worst struggles or worst periods of time in that 8 years that you can remember?
There are times when I talk to clients that are very difficult. So that was when I started my PR and marketing career. And I found a lot of challenges when like I had to troubleshoot some scenarios. So it would drain me so much and like it would make me feel like at the end of the day, it would let me question myself if am I really doing this right or am I really in the right path that I want to take? So there are a couple of instances in my career at that time that really pushed me to think of what I want and if I'm still in the right path.
Did you decide to so you had these multiple customer relationships that were super difficult and causing you a lot of stress? What did you do? Did you stay there long? Did you quit? Did you change something? What did you do?
I stayed there longer. Eventually, I learned how to manage these types of situations and I asked for help. That's really like one of the things that took me out of that situation. So it's that feeling of reaching out to the people that you know that can help you and
Who
not
did you
just
reach out to?
bottle mostly my boss at that time and also my teammates. So just because you're in charge of one specific account or client, you don't have to keep it all to yourself. There are ways of how you can handle it and there are people who've experienced the same that can really teach you how
I
to.
think that's a really powerful lesson because a lot of times we, for various reasons, we hold things inside. We try to do things alone, whether it's embarrassment or you don't want to bring your burden to other people, or you feel like you're supposed to be able to handle this. Everybody else is handling it. So a lot of people just don't do that. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you did it? Like, did it take a while before you decided to ask for help? Was it like really bothering you for a while or was it right away that you asked somebody?
It was bothering me for a while because I always thought that I always had that mindset that I can find solutions on my own. And I guess also the work environment at that time was it really pushes you to be independent. So you have to think of solutions. You have to find a way to get yourself out of that. And so for a while, I thought like asking for help was
Like,
showing that I wasn't capable
like weakness?
of, yeah, of showing my weakness or wasn't capable of handling that role. But
Mm,
eventually I realized that I'm not the only one who's struggling. So I can just reach out to my team
nice.
about it.
Very smart. And then how did you reach out? Did you
Just open
just kind of
conversations, really.
venting at first or if you
Yes,
could,
there were a lot of venting at first, but just allowing yourself to express how you feel. And
and then how did people help you?
they gave me tips on how I can handle these situations. And they also shared their stories. So that really helped a lot in understanding the situation.
And did it help? Were you able to improve the way you were
Yes.
handling it?
Yes, I would say since I stayed in that company for a while, I eventually found a way to handle these situations. So it helped a lot after that.
Did you learn anything about like psychology or understanding the customer better? Any learnings there?
Most of the learnings at that time would be like how observing how I react to different situations. So sometimes I feel like this is just all in my head. Why am I overanalyzing these things when it has a simple answer? So I'm still, that's one of the things that I'm still struggling with and I'm continuing to improve. But at that situation, it's really more of understanding or observing like how I react to different things. It's more of
That's
like self
that's a
discovery.
that's a huge insight. Yeah. I would argue that almost any problem we ever end up with in life that derails us or really causes us tons of frustration or pain, it's not the thing that's happening. It's the story that we're telling ourselves about it, and it's what it becomes in our own minds and
Yeah.
the way we're understanding it, and therefore the way we start feeling about it. And yeah, that's a really powerful realization that once you got so if you had the courage, and look, I think there's a lot of people in very similar situations. I'm sure many people who have quit jobs because they couldn't handle the stress anymore.
Yes.
And in their minds, they're blaming the toxic environment, they're blaming the customers. But wait, there's also other people working in the same on the same floor in the same company with the same accounts, with the same customers who are happy and thriving. So it's not all the outside things that are happening that it's yes, okay, those things are hard, but learning how to manage them. So I think it's really cool, a really great story. And it's not about whether or not you stay in the job very long, but I think it is about how you learn from those things. So it's either that those challenges happen to you and you quit and run away and never learn the lesson, or you stay long enough and you ask other people and you share stories and you discover something in yourself and you realize, oh, actually it's I can handle this better starting with how I'm processing it internally. And that's always the way it works. So I think thank you for sharing that story. I think it's really good, useful probably for a lot of people that are frustrated with work. So going back to your story of trying different things, you said, so how many different jobs have you had or different industries so far in those 8 years? You know?
Three,
Okay, that's not that
three
many.
jobs.
That's not that many in 8 years. It's actually so what's the longest you ever stayed in one place work wise?
Uh, I stayed the longest with a PR agency here in Cebu. So I stayed with them for 5 years.
And have you ever felt, I don't know, stuck or not growing as fast as you wanted to, anything like that?
Yes, actually, that's also the job that pushed me to rethink how I want my life to be because staying in a company for 5 years, it starts to become too comfortable. There are a lot of enjoyable moments and you still learn from that. But yeah, I think it's sometimes you get too comfortable that you're not sure if you're going at the speed that you want, if you're still growing, or you think you can achieve more if you try other things.
So there's a couple you used several words there that I would really love to talk more about because I've done a lot of deep soul searching and thinking about what matters most to me when it comes to comfort versus growth versus achievement and these to some degree, I think all humans want some comfort, some growth, some achievement, but we end up choosing our own mixture of them. What kind of ranking do we have? So some people are really driven by, let's say, achievement, and that might look like money or freedom, or I don't know what you think of the word achievement, but and then I would say a lot of people are, without realizing it, very much chasing comfort. US culture is very designed around that. The bigger the house, the more comfortable the couch, the more comfortable the car. We're actually working so hard to create achievements that will create comfort for us. But a lot of people get to that point and they're like, this sucks because comfort. Anyway, so let's say somebody listening is, wait, why would you not want comfort? So what if you are consciously putting growth and maybe achievement above comfort? and you realize comfort is not a good thing necessarily. How do you look at that, and how did you get that view? Because I think a lot of people are like, they just want to get to the place where it's comfortable. They want the government job so that it's secure, and then I don't have to worry anymore, because that's what we want. We want comfort. But what has led you to think that's not necessarily what we should chase or what you want?
That job gave me comfort and security. It also didn't give me a lot of time to develop skills outside work. So I guess that's what really pushed me to rethink of how I want to live my life, having more time to do things that I like to do.
Some people might be thinking, I want more time so I can pursue a hobby, or so I can watch more Netflix, or I don't know what. But you're saying you want more skills. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, like, how do you think you got to be the person who wants more time to get more skills? And let's talk about what they are. So let's say you're in that, remember back to when you were in that job where you didn't have very much time and you felt held back, something like that, where you were like, I wish I had more free time. I want more free time in my life so that I can, and you just used the word skills. So what were you imagining that you wanted to be doing that you couldn't do?
At that time, I really wanted to start a business.
Okay.
So I wanted to focus on that part of myself. And while I was in that work, I really didn't have that time to, or even the resources to really think of what I want to be doing. So I felt because I was too comfortable, I didn't push myself hard enough to actually take the first step in starting the business.
Okay. So you had a dream in your mind that you wanted to be starting a business. I want to ask you later, I want to talk about people's reasons for starting businesses. But first, you recognize that your comfort in that job, but also the amount of time that it's taking from you. So you're just not, you don't have the energy left, or whatever it is, for some reason, you're not starting the business when you're there. So what did you do?
Yeah. I also found myself saying a lot of times that I wanted to resign, that I wanted to take the time off, but actually didn't. And I was so afraid to not have that comfort anymore. It's really just taking the first step, have the courage to do what you want and stick with it. So in
So
my case, when I decided that I really wanted to resign and start a business, I didn't look back anymore. I started to imagine how I want to live my life or to structure my day and just kept moving forward from there.
what got you to the point? What was the breaking point? What, you just got frustrated enough, or was there like a trigger event? What made you finally decide to, because you're sitting there saying, I'm comfortable, but I know I need to disrupt myself so that I can actually pursue my dreams. And I'm not happy with myself because I know I could be doing this, but I'm not taking any action. So did it just build up to the point where you're like, fuck it, I got to do something? Or how did you have the courage finally?
I think it was the 5 year mark of my job that I really pressured myself to think if this is what I want to be doing for the next 5 years or the next few years.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
And
like
then,
having that timeline in my head that
so
really guided me,
it
like
was a
how,
milestone.
yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. So let's talk about your reason for starting a business. Like, what do you think are the underlying motivations that made you want that so much?
I guess I just really wanted to challenge myself and related also because I was influenced with my whole family. They all started the business. They all tell me that it's challenging and I wanted to try it for myself because I think that there are a lot of skills that I can learn from even just starting that business. And it's also an opportunity for me to discover if this is something that I want to do in the long run. So yeah, it's really more of experimenting and trying out new things.
What kind of a feeling does that give you when you're trying things, learning new things?
It gets me excited. I get really motivated to start my day. And also, it gives me the motivation to learn, to research more about it, to talk to people who are doing the same thing. So that really drives like how it drives how I grow myself.
How does it make you feel about yourself?
It makes me feel great. It makes me feel like I'm starting something. I'm in control of what I want. And it's at this point I have the power to drive myself to success and to personal growth. So it's more of being more the term.
Can I give you some words?
Yeah,
See if they
sure.
work. So you get this feeling of empowerment and inner locus of
In
control.
control.
It's like you're moving the locus, so it's the center of control, moves from the outside world to the inside. And then you feel like I'm creating me and I'm creating my life. Does that
Yeah.
sound right? And it feels great. Yeah. That's what this emerge is all about, like what we're trying to do here. Maybe we're going to call it emerging Filipino. We don't know yet, but in the process of starting this thing. And the whole point is to really help people discover how magical that feels when we feel like we have inner control of where we're headed, like who we're becoming, and taking ownership of our own growth and our own learning is, I think, where that can start. Because we can't always, you couldn't snap your fingers and have a business, right? First, you have to do inner work first and become the person who's more ready. And you had to do all this like thinking and playing
Yeah.
with your emotions and realizing I've got to be the one to disrupt myself. So I would love to, with some of with the remaining time that we have, I would really love to talk, tell as much as you can about what the journey has been like for you when it comes to maybe discovering the process of taking more ownership of your own learning, your own growth, and like allowing yourself to evolve. Cause like what you did there is you disrupted your comfort on purpose, which I think is super amazing. And we all should be doing this periodically, like intentionally disrupting ourselves so that we don't stay
Yeah.
flat. So we got to be able to, but then evolving is also scary. And sometimes it's hard to allow ourselves to change the way we see ourselves. Like growing is not easy. So what are some of the things you've learned or what's that journey been like for you?
It's been scary actually to try new things. But I guess what really helped me is I just kept reminding myself that I'm making progress, even in the tiniest of things. And it's been helpful that I'm documenting this journey. So taking notes, even pictures, or journaling everything, journaling the small progress so that I can push myself to keep moving forward.
That's super cool. Your journaling and documenting with photos, is that the business journey or your personal journey?
Even my personal journey, I think, yeah,
Ah,
photos and notes,
is this on
just like a way
social
of
media
reminding myself
just for you or on social media?
for me,
That's awesome. So the motivation for you is just to be able to see the progress?
yeah,
Oh man, that's so cool.
just to keep reminding myself that I'm making progress and I'm making, I'm using my time.
That is very powerful and something I've been amazed over and over again about how powerful it is to feel momentum. And like, it's so easy for us to analyze life, evaluate and get negative, get self-critical, self-doubt. Am I doing enough? Am I working hard enough? Am I actually moving forward? And like we have these dreams, we have things we imagine that we want to create or do or accomplish. And then we sometimes also make the mistake of thinking that we get to choose the timeline of when that's going to happen. So like by this time I should have already, but that's just not the way it works. And yeah, being able to focus your attention like consistently back on the progress and making sure it's consistent, making sure you're stacking that progress all the time. I love that. It's really amazing. So you said that how long ago did you start the business?
Just last July. So,
Okay. And I think this is worth talking. I want to see if we can connect these thoughts together a little bit because I think if you ask most people what is business and why do businesses exist, most people are going to be like something like to make the owners wealthy. That's what most people think business is for, to make money. Okay. I don't know. You ask a bunch of people and see if you agree. But earlier you said in one of your first jobs, or maybe you said your first job publishing company, that you were feeling this feeling like, I'm not really sure I'm doing something that's good for humanity. Or what did you say? You said good for the world?
yeah,
And then you said you wanted to start this business. You wanted to start a business to learn and to grow and to discover new things and see if you like it, see what you discover. So it sounds like, at least so far, I haven't really heard you talking about ultra material goals. Like doesn't sound like you're focusing a lot on creating wealth in the short term for yourself. But can you talk a little bit about how you see what are your dreams and how, and just talk about any of that when it comes to how you see business, why you're doing what you're doing, what your dreams are. I'd love to hear how those things fit. I know that's a big, messy question, but do whatever you want with it.
That's a very hard question to say what are your dreams. But I guess I wanna just focus on the business side and share a bit more of how we started this and why we're continuing to provide this kind of service. So it's more connected on what I like or what I'm passionate about. In this type of having a pet business or pet store, it's not really how we built this model is not really focused on making a lot of profit, but really building the pet community and supporting different brands. So I think that's what's really pushing me to start and to continue this business. It's not a single journey. It's a collective journey from the pet community of providing more products or more services to pet owners or pet parents, supporting small businesses. So I think that's the root of the business.
Okay. So you've chosen something you're passionate about, which is pets and pet ownership. And you said you're focusing on community and I would love to hear. So that sounds like a purposeful business where you're thinking more about what is the impact we're having for someone. And you wanted to support these local brands as well. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about why those things are meaningful to you? Is it pet owners and the meaning that they get from pets? Is it wanting to support, wanting to see entrepreneurs succeed? What are the different, why do you care? Why does that matter to you so much?
It's also because I've always had a pet my whole life and I know the effect that it can give you. And I want to support the same community that values pets. So promoting a better way to take care of your pets and seeking comfort and getting comfort from them and being more responsible overall, being more responsible citizens in this world.
Nice.
I guess that's the anchor there. So really pushing to have a better community here in Cebu.
And you created a model that provides a physical location for people to come in and touch and feel and play with the products that these pet e-commerce brands are selling or offering. How did you discover that was a need? So that you want to serve the community, you want to foster more high quality pet ownership. I'm using my own words here, but so you want to lift that whole community. How did you discover that there was that gap or that there was that need?
Ever since after the pandemic, there were a lot of bazaars or pet fairs. And so the pet owners would go to different locations and it can get exhausting for the brand partners to have to jump from one location to another. So they didn't really have a home to display their products. So that's the need that we saw. Like there should be at least one place that they can put their products and all the pet owners can visit.
Cool. Very nice. What are some of the biggest learnings that you've had so far in running your business? This is your first business, right? That you started. So what have
Yeah.
you yeah, just a couple of the major learnings so far?
You really have to know your customers and know the market well. It can shift anytime and you have to prepare yourself for that shift. So sometimes when you start a business, you get too excited. You have this timeline for yourself and oftentimes that timeline will not strictly be followed. So you need to prepare yourself and yeah, prepare yourself mentally and never get tired of thinking of creative solutions to these things.
Cool. And what's it been like having a job at a company and also running a business at the same time? Because I bet some people are thinking, how can you really do that successfully?
It just requires a lot of time management. If you like what you're doing, you don't get tired easily and you can allocate your time better. That's how it is for me right now. So,
If you love what you're doing.
yeah, if you love what you're doing, then it should come easy. It would entail a lot of sacrifices, but eventually you'll figure it out.
So a lot of people don't know how to find a job or set up their lives in a way that they would love what they're doing. So if somebody out there listening is not loving what they're doing, what would be one of the first steps? What's a first step toward you and I both know you can't craft a life that you're happy with overnight. So you got to take steps toward that. What would you recommend as step or two in the right direction if you're not loving what you're doing?
You just need to be, I guess, more observant. Put yourself in a lot of situations and document how that makes you feel. So for me, I like traveling a lot. I like being with the pet community. So you can't identify these things overnight. So you can't just like stare at the computer and pick what you want. So you have to, as much as possible, get yourself out there, discover what it is that sparks your interest, or even if it's just like conversations with people, being more observant about yourself and noticing how you're reacting to these topics or these situations.
Nice. How you document it. Because I think journaling, everybody knows the concept of journaling, but not many people have a real habit of it.
Mhm.
And I think it'd be really cool if you'd be willing to share what time of day you journal and what does the journaling look like? What kind of things do you write for yourself? And I think that's quite fascinating how you're saying that you document how you feel in situations. I think that's really valuable. So thank you for sharing that. Just want to say, first of all, thank you for taking the time and having the courage to show up and have this interview, even though I think you weren't that sure about what it would be like, but I hope it's been fun for you. As we wrap up, the first question I want to ask is if you think about the way you see yourself now, who you see yourself as now, and then you think back to Cora 5 years ago, like what are some of the major differences that you're proud of? How have you grown?
I think it's being more open to talk about personal growth. 5 years ago, I would be too proud maybe of myself and think that I've already learned the most that I can learn from this situation. But right now, I would say that mindset already shifted towards always like asking myself, what is there more to learn about in every situation? So it's more open to hearing out what people can teach me or what books can teach me. And yeah, not being too proud or too distant.
Love that. Do you know this tattoo that I have on my?
Yeah,
Do you know what it means?
no, I
It
don't think
means
you'd
always
share.
always open to change and always open to new data and never basically for me, it means never ever thinking I know anything. I think those 2 words "I know" are the most dangerous in the world because we start to close ourselves off, and we're just missing out on all the beauty of life, so I'm really happy to hear that you've started heading in that direction. I see you as someone that's very I don't think I've ever noticed you there are people even people who love to learn, even people who always wanna know new things, some people still have an initial resistance when they hear a new idea, and the new idea is quite different. It's like a new angle of looking at something, and it's like, "Wait, no, that's wrong." Like, they have this kind of first initial tendency to put up a wall, and then I'll say Jardine's been interviewed on this show. She sometimes she knows it too. It's like sometimes if an idea is quite contrary to in the way that it's being articulated to what she currently how she currently sees things, her initial response is like a bit of a wall
Yeah,
emotionally, energetic wall. And then she'll be like thinking about it. Oh my God. And if you can help her see it with different words from, she's, oh, they're both true. And she can hold both ideas and then mesh them together. I've never felt that from you. I've always felt very open, accept, like you're not accepting everything you hear. You're not gullible. You don't just like, oh, I heard that. And now I know it's true. Like you're analytical, you think about things, but you seem very open and receptive to new data. So I really appreciate that. I didn't know you back when you thought you knew things, but I like this version of you. All right. Thanks for sharing. Speaking of personal growth, what's one resource that's been meaningful for you that you would like to share with anybody who happens to be listening?
For anyone who wants to start like taking the first steps in personal growth, I would recommend Atomic Habits, of course. It's one book, it's an easy read, and you can read it again and again to remind yourself of like how you can improve yourself. And I also have this planner that is actually inspired by the Atomic Habits book. So it's called the First Step Planner, and it's structured in a way that you take 2 minutes of your day to just think of your goals, your tasks for that day. And it'll also help you end your day in a good state where you rate how it went and you write what you're appreciative of for that day. So what you're grateful for that day. So
Nice.
this practice has been helpful to me since the start of the year when I first had the planner. And it's not easy to build that habit, but once you like really put yourself, you train yourself to do it, you set an alarm or you fix your mind into doing it, it starts to become natural. So that's that's been very helpful for me, especially if someone here is just starting to build better habits. So just take the first step. And those are the things that I would recommend. Start
Nice.
writing and
Yeah.
structuring your day that way.
Learning how to build habits is like the most critical thing to ever learn because anything we want to change about ourselves or our lives is going to require consistency. And if you can't achieve consistency, like you'll never really change anything. And yeah, I love that. Habits. And it's really reassuring to know that habits, the ability to build new habits is not something you're supposed to be born with. It's actually, it's like a
Yes.
skill that you can break it down into steps and you can learn that model. And oh, there's a framework for habit building. Yes, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Very good stuff. And gratitude journaling, something about gratitude, it just has a very powerful effect to shift us into a different state of energy. And it's nice. All right. What's last question? What's one thing that you're currently trying to learn or get better at or struggling with, something you want to improve about yourself?
To be more expressive with my thoughts and with my feelings. I think that's one thing I've been struggling with for a long time. I'm not that comfortable yet, especially like if you're talking to new people or someone you're not really comfortable with yet. So
Yeah.
starting to build that, not being afraid to share what you
Yeah.
think and not being afraid to be judged. That's one of the things that I'm working on and have been practicing for a while now.
That's awesome to know. And I think it's a great choice for you to work on. I will tell you that if you knew me, I still think I have big challenges when it comes to like my facial expressions matching how I actually feel or making sure my tone expresses, but connecting as humans and being able to share how we're feeling, like our inner experience and being able to share it with vulnerability is it's like really a superpower. And it's something I think all of us have some kind of challenges with. Yeah, I think that's amazing. And just try to remember everybody is probably experienced some very similar things. Like we're all experiencing very similar emotions and there's nothing embarrassing about it. Crying in front of other people. Why are we embarrassed by this? We're all humans. It makes other people feel safer when we do that because then they can. When we show vulnerability, then they're like, oh, it's safe for me to also express what I'm feeling. And then it's just like you discover everybody's hiding. They're afraid of being judged and they're protecting and hiding. And then it's just an amazing thing once you practice. So that's a wonderful goal. I would also mention, I'd really recommend coffee with new people, just getting one
Mm.
coffee meetings and just that's a great venue to practice that and just being really interested with people and just digging deeper and having the courage to ask deeper emotional questions like how did that make you feel? Tell me more about what it's like just getting deeper in because the more you have the courage to go into other people's stories, the more you feel emotionally free to also share. That's how I think that was one of the ways that I did a lot of that practice to get more comfortable just being expressive and being vulnerable was one-on-one coffee with people I didn't really know that just as a
That's very helpful.
cool. Cora, thank you so much for today. It's been fun and I learned some cool things about you and I appreciate you just being here and sharing your story. And
Thank you so much. Thanks for
yeah,
having me, Rai.
thank you so much for listening to this interview on Emerge Stories. We really hope that something here sparked your curiosity or maybe helped you think about something in your life just from a little bit of a different angle or perspective, maybe opened up your mind to something you might be able to do in your life to take more ownership of your own learning and growth. That's the goal of this show. So please join our community, like and share, and tell other people about these stories if they're meaningful for you. And thanks so much for being here.